Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Game Developers Conference. Will Wright calls our next keynote speaker the Steven Spielberg of games. That helps a lot of people outside our industry place him in their worldview. Yet, I'm not sure it does him justice. Is there any culturally dominant art form or invention on this planet in which a single person played such a primary, direct, and career-inspiring role from its beginning to today? With a quarter century of disruptively contagious hits spanning from Donkey Kong to the Wii, I think we're at the beginning of a new analogy, where future geniuses may someday be lucky enough to be considered the Shigeru Miyamoto of their field. Everyone, it's a privilege and an honor to present a different kind of keynote, a very personal experience with our hero, Shigeru Miyamoto.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for your kind welcome. And thank you for a very good time last night. I'm amazed that it has been 8 years since we've had the chance to talk. And it seems you haven't aged a bit. Just like me. Once again, Bill Toynen from Nintendo of America is here to help me. Thank you, Bill.
よろしくお願いします。I've actually brought along one more helper today. It's the Wii Remote. And with this, I'd like to use the Wii Photo channel to do my presentation. It's quite useful, isn't it? So, I wonder what kind of a garden this is. Where could it be? The correct answer is that it's my garden. So maybe if we zoom in, maybe we can find some Pikmin. Donkey Kong. Of course, in 8 years, many things do change. And I'd like to begin today by talking about just one of those. In fact, let me go back about 25 years, a quarter of a century, to when I first started designing video games. Back then, these were the games that the general public was speaking about. And this was the stereotypical image of video gamers. It's very wholesome, isn't it? This is wholesome too, don't you think? Guys in neckties were playing video games back then. But this photo gives me kind of a sad prediction of the future, I think. So why don't we skip ahead? Now, in 1998, the year before my last GDC keynote, these were the top 5 best-selling games in America. Of course, characters like Mario and Zelda still prevailed. But at the same time, Nintendo also published the best-selling title that year, a true step forward called GoldenEye. And of course, countless people were able to enjoy a very Nintendo multiplayer experience with this game. Still, at this time, people believed that gamers were just having harmless fun. We didn't have a bad image. They were just experiencing the latest and the most popular form of entertainment. But within a few years, something changed. By the time we were well along in our plans for our next console, by 2004, these were the top 5 titles in America. And I noticed something different almost every time that I was interviewed by reporters. Instead of asking me questions about the games themselves, they always wanted to ask me about their perceived effect that games might be having on people. Do we have rights to this photo? Maybe I should, let's cover that face up. Instead, they somehow thought that we were changing gamers into some kind of zombies. And this troubled me. And I think the stereotypical image of what gamers were turned into something more like this. So even as sales went up, our reputation as an industry went down. And it's true, for most of us who are game designers, at this time there seemed to really be only one way forward. The players themselves seem to only want more of the same kind of game. And I think at that time to believe otherwise seemed a little naive. And we as developers even felt threatened that we had to make these types of games in order to sell more. So this was a period when Nintendo and myself personally found ourselves at something of a crossroads. We needed to decide whether we would continue to follow our historic vision. And I had to reflect on my own longtime vision as a developer. Would my style of games still be accepted by future users? Now all of this leads me to my topic today, the essence of any game designer, the creative vision, as well as one more topic, Nintendo's vision. Now, it's important to understand that no matter how clear your own personal vision, it must somehow resonate with the vision of your company. And I've been fortunate because what I believe has almost always matched what Nintendo believes. And I guess there are many ways to describe what we call the Nintendo difference. But in thinking about what Nintendo has always cherished, I've decided to explain the Nintendo difference with 3 elements of our corporate vision. The first you have no doubt heard about. Maybe you've heard a little bit too much about it by now. And that's the expanded audience. Now, a lot of words have been written about this concept, and it's even taken form in our personal corporate mission of trying to market to everyone aged 5 to 95. But today, I'd like to describe what this means by talking about a personal experience of mine. You see, I actually have my own personal way of determining just how successful a product can be with the expanded audience. I don't really know how to put this into English very well. So I'll just call it the wifeometer. So this wifeometer measures only one variable, the interest level of my own wife. Now maybe some of you out there can remember the very first time that you played a game like Pac-Man, or maybe a game like this. And maybe you think that these were very important moments in your lives. They were not important moments for my wife.
テトリスが出ました。
But then Tetris came out.
昨日パジノフさんに会いましたね。
I believe you all saw Mr. Pajanoff on stage last night.
ただね、これでもうちの奥さんは興味示さなかったんですよ。
The problem was that while I thought that my wife would be interested in this game, she was not.
そして、娘がこの時のオカリナを遊
But
び始め
then, when my daughter started playing Ocarina of Time at home,
たこの時少しこう変化があったんですね。
there was a little change.
これです。で今までね全然興味のなかった彼女が
See, my wife had gone from complete
娘が遊んでると
disinterest
ずっと見るようになったんですね。
to a background observer. She watched my daughter playing from behind.
これはちょっと可能性があるかもわからない。
So then I thought, oh, maybe there is hope.
奥さんワイフメーターがクッて上がったんです。
The wifeometer moved up just a little bit.
そして動物の森です。
Then came Animal Crossing.
でこのゲームができた時に僕は彼女に
Now, when this game came out,
敵が出てこな
I
いよって
assured
私
my
に言い
wife that there were no enemies to fight in this game.
で彼女はこう小顎を触ったんです。
So she agreed to actually touch the controller.
で結局娘とこう手紙を
And she
交
became
換した
very
り
happy exchanging letters with our
手を使い
children
遊んでました
and even cutting down trees.
で奥様メーターがグッて上がりました。
The wifeometer moved up a little bit more.
もっと上げてやろう。
And I thought, I'm going to get that thing higher.